Hi guys, I just thought I'd do a very quick ranked video on the Skywalker Saga Star Wars films, so episodes 1 through 9. Haven't seen a few of these around. I've literally just got done with my review for the Rise of Skywalker. I've just got back today from seeing it, so if you want to check that out, That's just uploaded on my channel. But yeah, otherwise this is going to be a very quick video just based on the 9 Skywalker Saga Star Wars films, so not including the side films like Solo or Rogue One. So maybe I might do a video on that in the future, but at the moment I'm just going to be focused on episodes 1 through 9. So yeah, I guess I'll get going. So for me, out of the 9 films, at the very, very bottom of the pile, episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is going to take the number 9 spot. A reason for that, I don't think I really need to elaborate much as to why. It's just a very mushy film. Dialogue's very mushy. Obviously George Lucas wrote the dialogue for this one. Don't think he's ever been regarded as a fantastic screenplay writer, and it shows here. Obviously the dialogue between Padme and Anakin, not very good. My other complaint with Attack of the Clones is the CGI. If you look at Attack of the Clones, it's basically green screen everywhere. The effects in, I think it was 2002 when Attack of the Clones came out, it still wasn't where it needed to be, and entire scenes are completely done with green screen, and it really, really shows. Hasn't aged well at all, the effects in that film, and obviously the story itself is very, very weak. I'm not particularly fond of some of the set pieces in that particular film, and even though I think he's an amazing actor, Christopher Lee, I don't think he carries a very strong role in Count Dooku, just based on the fact that obviously he is an older guy. The lightsaber duel at the end is proof of that. If it's anything to go by, it's just not up to scratch. Ewan McGregor even said himself he wasn't particularly fond of the lightsaber duel at the end of episode 2 after episode 3 came out. He said it wasn't in any way near as good. So yeah, I don't really need to go into that too much. So Attack of the Clones all the way down the bottom at the number 9 spot. Nearly said episode 9. Coming to that, in the 8th spot is episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, the film that I've literally just got back from seeing today. It's obviously, the newest, so you'd expect it to be up there, but for me, unfortunately, it's just not very good. As I said in my review, I won't go into too much detail. If you want to check out that review, check it out. And I won't go into spoilers, obviously, if you haven't seen it. But for me, it feels like about 3 Star Wars films like squashed into one. Even has a shorter runtime than the last film, which is The Last Jedi, and they've tried to squeeze in far too much. It's just a lot of exploitation. It's far too much going on. It's a very, very rushed film. There's no room to breathe, and yeah, you can't really take in everything that's going on. The actors do a fantastic job. Have to give credit where credit's due. The acting's top notch. It's just everything else to do with the film with regards to pacing and all the other elements. I will mention just something very quickly. I do feel like the writers of this particular film used the Force a bit too much when they came up against a brick wall when it came to writing plot and story. And I do feel like the Force is a little bit abused. They were taking a little bit too much of a liberty with the Force in this particular film, so that's something to look out for. So yeah, at number 8 is The Rise of Skywalker. For me, at the number 7 spot, this is obviously going to be controversial for you hardcore Star Wars fans, but for me, at number 7 is actually Return of the Jedi. The reason Return of the Jedi is so far down is, I have to say, especially in the second act, and the second act is where you want the main bulk of the action to be, main sort of crux of the entire film, in the weight of the film to be in the second part of the film. I do find myself being a bit bored, especially with what's going on Endor with Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewie, and the Ewok battle. I mean, need I say more about the Ewok battle? It's just very, very goofy, not very believable. Obviously, you've got what's going on with Han and stuff. I just don't find that very interesting. Everything else to do with what's going on with Vader, Luke, and the Emperor. Obviously, the battle that goes on the new Death Star. That's all very interesting. And for them to cut back from that to what's going on Endor, I don't know, I just get very, very bored watching that. Credit where credit's due. I love the speeder chase, Leia and Luke on the speeders, chasing those other stormtroopers, and the scenes on Tatooine when they go to Jabba's palace, and Leia obviously gets her revenge on Jabba by strangling him, and I really like Luke's confidence in the first half of the film. He's always got a plan. He knows what he's doing, even if the plan goes wrong. Obviously, when he falls into that pit in Jabba's palace, obviously that wasn't planned, but he still works around that, and he still comes out on top by saving all his mates. I think that's a really good part of Return of the Jedi. But the rest of the film, I have to say, I do get a little bit bored with. So that's why it's where it is on my list. Next one up from that at number 6 is actually The Force Awakens. Reason being is that J.J. Abrams, I think he did a fantastic job introducing us to a new set of characters. You had BB-8, you had Rey, you had Poe, you had Finn. You had all these new characters that you had to be introduced to and be invested in. I think JJ did that phenomenally well. Obviously, he respected a lot of the original trilogy as well. He did a lot of practical effects along with modern up-to-date CGI effects, which I really respect, and you can see that in the film. Obviously, not to forget Kylo Ren. Sorry, I just forgot about Kylo Ren. Obviously, brand new villain. I think he's actually gotten better as it's gone throughout the sequel trilogy, and he really shone in all those films. You really get a feel that it's a Star Wars film as well. The biggest letdown, and I'd say it's the main reason I list the films in the way in which I do, is the story. The story, as George Lucas himself complained, is far too similar to A New Hope. It's just far too similar, and that's obviously what lets it down for me. That's why it's not as high up as other films. But yeah, everything else they got right. It's just the story, sadly. So that's at number 6. So we're now into the top 5. Obviously, you guys are probably scratching your heads thinking, how can he list some of these like in his top 5? But obviously, I'll get to that. So number 5, I've actually got The Last Jedi. So reason why Last Jedi is number 5 is I think that Rian Johnson, the director of Last Jedi, I think he did a really good job of moving things forward. Really original story, really like the story. He moved all the characters forward, he moved the plot forward as well. Tried out a few new things. Obviously, I liked some of the new things, wasn't keen on certain things. But you take the rough with the smooth, and I think the majority of what he did with The Last Jedi I actually liked more than I disliked. So that's why it's at number 5. I think it's a really good addition. My favourite film out of the, obviously where it's listed on the ranking, it's my favourite out of the sequel trilogy. So yeah, credit where credit's due. I think he did a good job, and obviously it's a bit of Marmite when it came out. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I fell more on the side that liked it. So Last Jedi number 5. Number 4, we've got Revenge of the Sith. Now I don't know if you guys feel the same, but with Revenge of the Sith, whenever I watch that film, it's always one I find is an amazing rewatch. When you watch the opening scene with the battle over Coruscant, to the final act when obviously Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia, and we get Anakin's fall to the dark side and the transition into Darth Vader, I think when you get to the end of the film, you just want to watch it again. And as soon as you see that opening scene again over Coruscant, you're like, wow, we have got an adventure to go on. We have got some really, really solid character driven elements in this story to delve into, and it's great. I think it's really, really good. Obviously, performances again, all across the board, really, really good. Obviously, Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid playing Darth Sidious / Palpatine, fantastic job. And obviously, he's one of the highlights of the entire film. It's just great to watch. So, at number 4, Revenge of the Sith. Number 3, obviously, I'm going to get tarred and feathered here in the comment section. I can just see it coming off. But for the number 3, for me, believe it or not, is The Phantom Menace. Now, the reason why The Phantom Menace is where it is I feel that Lucas got the feeling and the style of filming from the originals and put it into Episode 1, which I think is really, really good. And not many people pay attention to that. Usually when people, look at the reasons why they don't like Episode 1, 9 times out of 10 it's Jar Jar Binks. It's always Jar Jar's fault. Now, obviously, Jar Jar aside, there's a lot of positives in Episode 1, and I think those positives are really, really strong in the Star Wars universe, based on what we've got, with the sequel and the prequels. I think it's really, really strong. Like the scenery, a lot of the scenery was shot on real locations. That really, really shows. For some reason, the CGI looks better in Episode 1 compared to Episode 2 and 3. Don't know if you guys have noticed that, but when you rewatch it, just look at the CGI. It's a lot sharper, it's a lot crisper, it looks a lot more realistic. So I think that's a real strength to it. And it was the first in a new series of films. We got a younger Obi-Wan Kenobi played by Ewan McGregor. We had a brand new character in Qui-Gon Jinn, his mentor, played by Liam Neeson. Fantastic job. We also got Mace Windu. Finally got introduced to Mace Windu, played by Sam Jackson. And obviously, we also got introduced to the younger cast, which was Padme Amidala, played by Natalie Portman. Her character in this was the best, I think, out of the sequels. Out of the prequel trilogy, rather. I think she did a really good job mystifying her character and building a strong character, trying to defend her home planet of Naboo. And obviously, we've got Jake Lloyd, child actor. Not much to be expected from him. Obviously, he gets a lot of hate for his performance in that film. But then again, he was a kid at the time. And obviously, the less said about Jar Jar, the better. But that's why I believe Episode 1 deserves more credit, because it looks, sounds, and it sits. I think it sits well at the start of a story. It's not something. It's a completely different feel to what you get in the originals, and I don't think that's anything to be hated at. Obviously, it was a different time in the galaxy. One last big shout out to Episode 1, Duel of the Fates, along with the remainder of the score. John Williams, obviously, he scored all of these films. Amazing, amazing composer, and Duel of the Fates is one of the best in the catalogue. Episode 1 and ranking of number 1 and number 2. Nearly put Episode 1 number 1 there. So number 1 and number 2 for me. Obviously, it's a toss up between the legendary 2, which is Episode 4, A New Hope, and Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. For me, I have to say, Empire sits at number 2 and New Hope sits at number 1. The reason being is I think Episode 4, A New Hope is more of a self-contained story, and it can sit on its own. Doesn't need any prequels, doesn't need any sequels. It's just there and is awesome. Obviously, number 2 expanded on everything that we got in the first one. Darker tone. Obviously, doesn't end very well for the Rebels at the time. Leaves it on a bit of a cliffhanger for what we got in Return of the Jedi. But yeah, I think the reason why New Hope sits above Empire for me is because it's more of a self-contained story. It doesn't need anything else. You can just watch that, and someone who's never seen Star Wars before, you can just give them that and say, do you want more? And you can give them the whole rest of the entire saga, or you could just leave them hanging and say, no, that's it. And they would probably think that it was awesome, because it is awesome. You've got the story of all these different characters from different backgrounds meeting each other, that need each other, and they work together to obviously go up against evil, which is Darth Vader, and his forces, and obviously out of that becomes a great friendship, which leads into the next 2 films, and that's why they need each other, because they've become friends. They need each other more in this one than the others, and that friendship develops from this very, very first film, and that's why it's number 1 for me. It's always one that I can go to if I ever want to watch a Star Wars film. It's always top of my list whenever I want to watch a Star Wars film. So that's my ranked video on the 9 episodes of the Skywalker Saga of Star Wars, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you guys agree, or even if you don't, please leave a comment down below so we can talk about it, and we can obviously go through your favourites and why you think that they are the best. As you can see from my awesome Santa hat here, it is the time of year for wishing a Merry Christmas. So I'll wish you guys a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys in the new year and in a new video. Cheers, guys.